Hello and welcome to Regi's Recess, where you get real talk about real relationships. I am your host, Regi Rodgers, renowned singles empowerment coach and relationship coach. I'm also the author of the book, Love at First Spirit. And do I have a great show for you tonight? As always, I do my best to come up with some amazing topics that will captivate and capture your attention. And so I've got a great guest tonight. We're going to talk about something that we think will probably be relevant to what we are facing right now in our country. And some way, somehow, we're going to tie this in with relationships. If you were with us last month we had so many reviews and we had so many questions and comments about our topic last month, which was how much skin showing is too much summer madness. So we're going to go a different direction this month, and we're going to talk about healthy and happy, being healthy and happy, but it comes from within. So before I introduce my guest, let me set it up for her, because recently I was reading something and there was a critical mass of research that has been provided that could be basic, but yet irrefutable, could be a basic argument or an irrefutable argument in favor of happiness. It talked about happiness and good health go hand in hand. So my guest, we're going to see what she thinks about that. My guest tonight is none other than Jennifer Davis. And if you don't know who Jennifer Davis is, you will know after this show. Let me just give you a little bit of bio. Jennifer is a Z Health practitioner and has been a trainer for most of her life. I think that's enough for her to come in and so she can talk about her expertise. Jennifer, what's happening?
Not much. It's been a great day so far. Excited to be here.
Well, listen, we're so excited to have you on Regi's Recess on 87.9 Heat FM, Real Talk, Real Relationships, Charlotte. Jennifer, when I read your bio, it talked about Z Health Practitioner. What is a Z Health Practitioner?
So that means that people come to me when they're in pain, they want to improve performance. So my clients can either be athletes who want to improve their game, they want to have better reflexes, they want to jump higher, they want to move better. Or I work with a lot of retired athletes who have injured themselves and have dealt with concussions, and they're in pain, they're not moving well, they're dealing with personality issues because of it, and they're not getting the help from the medical field. So a Z Health practitioner is someone that you would go and see to help fix that.
Okay, so what is the True Health method? When we talk about the True Health method, and this whole month, we're going to be talking about health and happiness and how does one correlate to the other? Is there a correlation between health and happiness? I'm blessed and fortunate to have you for a part one and a part two. So we're going to try to dig deep tonight, get the people on the edge of their seat. So when we come back next week, we can continue to drive it on home. But what is True Health? What is the True Health method? What is that?
So that is something I came up with because, when people are trying to get healthy, one of the things that I noticed is that everyone would start and then stop 2 weeks into it, and they would become frustrated. They felt like they were starving themselves. It was hard for them to create new habits, and they just didn't understand. And overall, it just became this frustrating experience. And I believe that true health, when achieving that, it should be easy. You shouldn't have to try to experience like willpower or try to develop mental toughness. The True Health method is a lifestyle. And so I take people who have no idea how to fix their health to the end of however long they plan to work with me. They not only can communicate to their doctors, they're confident, they know exactly what their body needs to become healthier. And my goal is that they're a completely different person and that they've enjoyed the journey of becoming healthier.
So when you say lifestyle, because we're talking about health and happiness, but the tag on that is it all comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this month is health and happiness, but it comes from within. So when you say lifestyle, define lifestyle for me, because it does. It all starts from within. And so you got to kind of have that launching pad so that you can launch outward, but it starts inward. So when I say that to you, what does that mean?
So, you know, when you are trying to get healthier and happier, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lifestyle. You have to completely change who you are from the inside. In fact, you know, something that I tell my clients a lot is you need to repair from the inside out. So that means if you wake up and you're in a bad mood, we're going to start shifting your mindset.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to choose your thoughts like you're choosing shoes. If there's a thought that's not serving you, you need to change it.
Yeah.
And then you need to, if you're eating something, or if you have a stressful job, if you have friendships or relationships that are toxic, you're not going to have a healthy lifestyle, which means you're not going to be happy, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, because I always say, I have a buzz phrase, if you want to call it that, you know, wherever the attention goes, that's where the energy flows.
Yeah.
So when you talk about thinking and the thoughts, you know, whatever you focus on, it has the potential to manifest.
Exactly.
So when you say thinking, I think it's important that you get people to the understanding of what you take in is what comes out. And so you have to be careful what you allow your mind to meditate on or what you ponder on. And if you park there too long, it can affect you.
Exactly. You know, I just wrote something about this the other day. If you, during your day, if you're saying, oh man, it's too hot outside. Oh, I hate this weather. You know, oh, I don't want to go to work. I can't stand this person. You're going to have a miserable day. You can control the situation. And that's what people don't realize nowadays. You're in a lot more control than you think you are. You know,
I agree. I think that your words create your world. And if people understood the power of their words, there are certain things that they just would not say. You know, biblically, it says death and life is in the power of the tongue. Yeah. So there are certain words that we just, okay, let me tell you for me. 3 years ago, I threw 3 words out of my vocabulary, and I did it intentionally 3 years ago. I threw out of my vocabulary the word stress. I don't use that word. Why? Because I feel like if that's what I use, that's what it'll be. So I threw that out of my vocabulary 3 years ago. Another word that I threw out of my vocabulary was overwhelmed. That's just something, because if I have a lot on my plate, it just simply means that some way, somehow, I can handle it. It was given to me because to whom much is given, much is probably required. So I can handle it, right? So I don't use overwhelmed. And the last one that I threw out of my vocabulary was struggle. I think that if it's such a struggle, it's going to be a struggle because you just created it with your mouth and your words. Yeah. You know, so those were 3 words that I threw out 3 years ago, and it made a big difference. So yeah. what you're saying, coming from within to go without, and how we think, as a man thinks, so is he, right? It becomes. I want to ask you some questions here in regards to health and happiness. Do you believe that happiness protects your heart?
Absolutely. Now, do you mean literally your heart or figuratively?
Yeah, I'm actually, it's a combo, literally and figuratively, because I believe that love and happiness may not actually originate in the heart, but I think they're a good fit for the heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And again, this just goes all it falls into play with just having the proper mindset. Like if you decide that you're going to be happy, you create your happiness. You're not going to depend on anybody else to create happiness for you. So when you take on, when you make that conscious decision to be happy every day, not only do you protect yourself from whatever's coming at you, you're happy, but then you actually start improving your health, and then that can actually protect your literal heart, because you're not going to be producing stress hormones that actually can deteriorate your organs. Things like adrenaline, cortisol, they will actually start to eat away at your organs, because if you take on too much stress for the brain will compensate.
Wow.
So that's why I said I can do the, do you mean literal heart? Because it can do both.
That's really good. There was a study, they found that happiness predicts lower heart rate and blood pressure just by being happy.
Yeah, that's one of the main things that when I get a new client, I teach them, when you set in your mind that you're going to be stressed, overwhelmed, all the words that you took out of your life, like I said, you are going to produce maladaptive stress hormones, because your brain goes, oh, I'm in a survival state. Your brain thinks it's in threat, and your brain doesn't know the difference between having a gun in your face or running away from a lion or just dealing with a stressful boss. So when you've taken on, hey, I'm going to be miserable or stressed today, it's going to ramp up stress hormones that create inflammation. And that inflammation is going to make your blood pressure go up. It's going to raise cholesterol. It's going to raise all the backup generators that your system has in place to protect you. And unfortunately, we're only supposed to be under that influence for small amounts of time. But think about it. If you are in this negative space every day, all day, can you imagine the wear and tear that does on your body? Sure,
Wow. Hey, you're listening to Reggie's Recess on 87.9 Heat FM Charlotte, where you're getting real talk about real relationships. And my guest tonight is Jennifer Davis. And if you want to call in, you can call 385-212-HEAT. That's 385-212-HEAT. Join in the conversation. Let us hear your questions. Let us hear your comments, and leave us a message. I'll make sure Jennifer gets those messages or comments, and she'll be back with us again on next week for part 2. So you can leave those messages, and she will get it, and you'll get to hear it from her. And again, that's Reggie's Recess, 87.9 Heat FM Charlotte. Jennifer, I also saw that in a study. We were talking before we took our station identification pause break, but in a 2008 study, researchers monitored 76 patients suspected to have coronary artery disease. And so they found, though, was happiness linked to healthier hearts, even among people who might have heart problems. It seemed so they discovered that happiness helped to heal these people that they researched. So I think that with everything going on in our country right now, people are stressing, as we just talked about, what stress can do, what it can cause. People are stressing, and people are, again, that word, overwhelmed. And people may feel like it is turning into a struggle. What do you suggest are some things that if you had someone come in and sit on your cot right now and they were a patient, what are some of the things that you would say?
One of the first things that I would say is you need to breathe, because that's why those people, even though they may have had like a poor diet, maybe they didn't get the best sleep, they're obviously dealing with some health issues, but just the fact that they were happier people, a lot of times that's the situation, because when we're stressed, we breathe very shallow. We breathe from up here, from the top of our lungs. Well, there's nerves that integrate to the top of the lungs, which send a signal to the brain, you're in trouble, you're stressed. Okay. It's hard to be happy when you're in that state, when there's tension, when your brain literally thinks it's running away from its, trying to save its life, basically. When someone is happy, regardless of their health, they're going to be more relaxed. They're going to be breathing deeper, which now you're going to be signaling nerves in the lungs, in the lower lungs, where your brain thinks, hey, we're good. Everything is great. So one of the first things that you can do is just stop, close your eyes, and breathe. And instantly that will change your state. You will
stop, close your eyes, and breathe.
And you want to make sure that you're doing like a belly breathing. And most women don't want to do this because when you inhale, you're going to have to stick out your stomach. So you have to
right.
Stick out your stomach, and you're going to do a big long inhale and then exhale. And when you do that for like 5 or 10 breaths, you're going to feel so much better, because what's happening is you increase your CO2 levels, which were normally supposed to be anyway. But because everyone is so stressed, they're on the higher nitric oxide level, which increases inflammation. And it's very acidic to the body. So if you just stop and just take a moment and breathe, that can do wonders right there.
I think that's so significant what you're saying, especially where we are now in the time that we're in our country, all the protesting going on, and in particularly with the I can't breathe. I mean, what you just said was so powerful, with George Floyd and the knee being held to his neck and he couldn't breathe. 8 minutes, 46 seconds, I just think that was very, very powerful, because breathing is so important. And you said, I can't breathe. That was just like, that took us right to where, what we're experiencing.
Exactly. And, like with you just saying that, and kind of sitting back and reflecting on the nation and what's going on around the world, you almost feel very like stifled and suffocated when you're on Facebook or when you're watching the news, right? You feel yourself holding your breath. You can't breathe. So. Yeah.
I have another one. I want to see what you think about this. Happiness, when I say this to you, tell me what you think. Happiness strengthens your immune system.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I just mentioned before, when you're happier, you're going to be releasing dopamine. You're going to have a healthier thyroid function. And now your thyroid basically deals with your immune system. And when your thyroid is happy, you're going to be producing things like protective youthful hormones like progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and all these hormones, they make you happy. They make you warm and fuzzy. When you wake up in the day and you're just happy and you're just going through life and you're just, things are awesome. That's usually with someone who has a really good thyroid function and liver function. You will be converting T4 into T3. Your cholesterol levels will be happy. Your cells will be getting the right amount of fuel that it needs to produce energy, so you can have enough energy to go about your day. And when you're like that, when you're in that state, it's actually called the Krebs Cycle, your immune system is up. And actually, you're actually more protected against things like viruses. I mean, with all my clients, when they started talking about COVID, the first thing I said is, stop watching the news, because they were miserable. They were stressed. They were panicked. I'm like, you are going to lower your immune system just by getting yourself worked up.
Right.
If you're happy and your immune system is up and you are creating more CO2 versus nitric oxide, viruses can go dormant inside you. All diseases, whether that's viruses, cancer, diabetes, anything, HIV, whenever acidity level is up and when your body is under large amounts of stress, you become acidic, and that's when viruses and bacteria are at the most powerful. You relax, you breathe, you eat right, you eat things like fruit and juice and milk and cheese and good nutrient-dense foods, you will automatically be producing hormones that not only make you healthier, but you'll be happier. You will be a happier person. I look at my clients compared to other people that I'm not working with, and there's something different about my clients. They're calmer through this time. They're able to reason what's going on. They're more practical, and they're calmer. Versus someone who doesn't eat well, who doesn't eat at all. Maybe they're just so, when you're so busy, you don't eat.
Right.
I notice the people that are panicked and stressed and scared and angry right now, they're the ones with the lower immune system.
That's interesting. I think what you're saying is just so very, very key. I think it's vital right now with supposedly the COVID-19 cases now increasing.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're giving is some great information. People need to hear this, with their own personal lives. And so how they can create a shield so that happiness can help boost their immune system. That's important. What you said about warm and fuzzies, when I hear warm and fuzzies, because I do relationship coaching and I'm always on the platform about relationships. So when I hear warm and fuzzies, my mind automatically goes to relationships.
Yeah.
When a male meets a female, they have that initial encounter, and she walks away. She has the warm and fuzzies, and
yeah.
he spoke something to her. Is there a correlation, would you say, with that? And when she feels those warm and fuzzies
regarding health?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So
hold on before you answer that. Meaning, so let's say if depending on the frame of mind she's in, and when they have that encounter, depending on where she is mentally, emotionally, does that have anything to do with maybe she will get the warm and fuzzies or maybe she won't?
Absolutely, because I'll stick with women on this situation because men are a little bit different. But with women, because of society's pressure on women and what they should eat and how they should exercise, it's extremely stressful. And because of that, female bodies nowadays produce more estrogen.
Okay.
And without going too deep into it, estrogen is actually not the female hormone. Progesterone is. It was said that estrogen was the main female hormone because they wanted to sell birth control. But I'll let that sit.
That may be for another. I might have to bring it back on, and we can talk about that one another time.
So when you have a female that is highly estrogenic, that means their body is already under high amounts of stress metabolically, meaning they're acidic. Okay. They're not producing hormones that is going to increase their libido. They're not going to be interested in the opposite sex. They're not going to be interested in sex. In fact, the brain is going to take it as threatening because they don't have the resources, the reproductive resources to even to have sex, from the brain's standpoint, that's part of survival. Does that make sense? Being in a relationship, procreation.
Yes.
A lot of metabolic resources. So if you have a woman that's hormones are all off, that's the last thing they want. When they come.
No, I don't want to cut you off. I just thank you for sharing that with me because I know now to go the other direction. That's the last thing I need, right?
Yeah. They're like, their brain's going, oh no, what is this trouble coming on?
Right.
And so, and it's interesting because I watch, for me, before I started repairing my health, and I was low thyroid, and my hormones were a mess, and I had all the other symptoms that are very common with females. My libido was low, and men would approach me, they would ask me on dates, and I was just like, I was as rude as can be. You know what I mean? Just snappy, And it wasn't until I started repairing my health, I became happier. I produced more youthful hormones where I was like excited for the experience. It became an opportunity to meet someone, and it was a journey, and it was, you know what I mean? It's different.
Wow. You know, I'm gonna throw a little funny out there, but do you know a grumpy listen, do you know a grumpy person who always seems to be getting sick?
Oh yes.
That may not be a coincidence, because research is now finding a link between happiness and a stronger immune system. So if they're always getting sick, it's probably because they're grumpy all the time.
Exactly. And you know what? A few years ago, it hit me. You know, when you're driving down the road and you're someone with like road rage, or you might have that family member that's just determined to be miserable, determined to be negative. A lot of times that person is estrogenic. A lot of times that person is so abundant in maladaptive stress hormone that their brain is saturated with acidity and these stress hormones, that their frontal lobe, which deals with how we interact, how we make decisions, it's not functioning properly. And I'm not calling them crazy.
Right, you're right.
But when you have a low functioning frontal lobe due to not eating, because the frontal lobe is actually the last part of the brain to get fed, believe it or not. So when you have people that are cranky, making bad decisions, and just a mess, you know, usually you are dealing with someone who is overworked and underfed.
Wow. You just said a mouthful there.
Yeah, and I really look at people differently now. Instead of thinking, well, God, you're a jerk, I'm like, you know what? They just might not be healthy.
Wow. Hey, you guys, you're listening to Reggie's Recess on 87.9 Heat FM Charlotte, and we're talking about health and happiness, and it comes from within. My guest tonight is Jennifer Davis, and we're having what we call on my show a delicious dialogue. We're also having a delightful dialogue. You can join in. Call us at 385-212-HEAT. That's 385-212-HEAT. We'll make sure that she gets leave a message, leave a comment. We will make sure that she will get the message or the comment or the question, and she'll be back with us again next week. We're only just getting started. This is part 1, but next week we're going to go do part 2. So we're just getting started. So she's going to be back with us again next week. And before we took our station identification break, we were talking about how happiness has the potential to do wonders on the immune system. Happiness strengthens your immune system. So, Jennifer, I was looking at, there was an experiment done in 2003. 350 adults volunteered to get exposed to the common cold. Before exposure, researchers called them 6 times in 2 weeks and asked how much they had experienced 9 positive emotions, such as feeling energetic, feeling pleased, feeling calm for that day. And after 5 days in quarantine, the participants with the most positive emotions were less likely to have developed a cold. So I think that ties into what the country is experiencing now. They're being quarantined. I think what they meditate or what they think on during quarantine has a lot to do with their body being built back up.
Yeah. Well, and if you can even create the symptoms just by your mind.
Yeah.
I can sit here, and if I were to close my eyes and really meditate on getting a sore throat or maybe having struggles of breathing, I could create that if I wanted to. So especially like with that test, it's like, or that study, it's like if you take on people who know that they're going to be, what's the word you used? confronted or exposed to bacteria or virus like a cold, they're going to get sick because they've already accepted the fact that they're going to get sick. That might be a little bit different direction that you wanted to go. I apologize.
No. I love it. I totally love it. I think you were spot on, where I want to go. So we talked about the words that we've thrown out, but so now one of those words that we said I threw out was stress. Do you think that happiness combats stress?
Absolutely. Yeah, because for what I do as my career, when I think of stress, I think about what stress is going to do metabolically. And if you're someone who is dealing with stress and you want to learn more of what stress does to the body and your personality, a great researcher and science man, his name is Hans Selye, and he has a book called The Stress of Life. And his whole life's work, he was actually called the father of stress because his mission was to see any type of stress, whether that was someone ticking you off, not eating, being exposed to viruses, maybe being out in the sun too much, whatever it is, whatever stress it is on the body. He talks about how, yes, it's going to affect your behavior and your personality because your inflammation goes up. And when the brain is trying to combat inflammation and what other chaos that stress is forming in your body, that's going to have an impact on different parts of your brain that deals with how you interact in your relationships and with society. When I think of stress, I always think of stress on a metabolic level. A lot of people, when they hear the word stress, they're like, oh, no, I'm not stressed. My bills are paid. I'm fine. My marriage is okay. But there's so much more when it comes to stress. If you're skipping breakfast and lunch, and you're only getting dinner in, if you're not moving throughout the day, movement increases dopamine in the brain. Learning what we're doing right now, you're saying things, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. This is an exchange. We're increasing dopamine levels, which is going to make us healthier. It makes our brain happier. So when people limit their movement and when they're not outside, when they're not learning, when they are not living life to the fullest, that they're not going to be healthy, which plays a toll on their happiness.
Wow, that's I think what you're saying, you're giving some. I hope my audience, they're taking notes. I hope it's impacting. I hope one of the things that I always say is about being empowered, enlightened, and awakened. So I'm hoping they're being empowered, enlightened, and awakened because you're giving so much good information. But stress is not only upsetting on a psychological level, but it also triggers biological changes in our hormones and our blood pressure. Happiness seems to temper these effects or at least help us recover more quickly. So there is this correlation again, but I'm going to throw a curve at you.
Okay.
I'm sure you can get up to the plate. I know you're going to hit it. You'll probably hit it out the park. I read something that says happy people have fewer aches and pains. You agree with that?
I do. In fact, it's a muscle test or a range of motion test that I do with my clients when I'm trying to teach them how their thoughts impact their health. And so when I have a client that comes to me and they're like, oh man, my back hurts. I have limited range of motion. I can't touch my toes. I will have them sit and think, like maybe even for 10 seconds, close their eyes and think about something that just ticks them off or makes them feel sad. And then I have them do a range of motion. They will be tighter. It may create pain. And they have a limited range of motion, right? Next second, right after that, I'll say, okay, I want you to think about something that just makes you happy. Your toes are in the sand, you have the waves on you, you're with someone you love, you're laughing, you have the sun on your face, whatever it is. And they think about that for 10 seconds. And I say, okay, do that exact same range of motion. Their range of motion will increase and their pain will go away. So our mindset can control the amount of pain that our brain sets out, because it's our brain that creates pain. It's not our body. People think opposite. It's actually the brain, because pain is an action signal.
Okay.
Our brains have something called, think of it as like a threat bucket. And you have a little bit of water in there at the bottom. And you're pouring in, I can't pay my bills. Oh, we have a pandemic. Oh my God, I don't know if my boyfriend is cheating on me. Oh my God, and you start throwing all this stress in the bucket, and the water level starts to rise. The brain goes, we're going to have a nervous breakdown. We cannot live like this. So what it does is, think about like a spigot on a water bucket. It starts leaking some of that water. Well, that water is pain. So when I have someone that comes to me and they're like, I'm in chronic pain, and the doctors can't figure it out why I'm in pain, I always ask them, what's your life like? What was your past like? Have you been abused? Do you hate your job? One of the worst times I was ever in pain was I was working for a man he was a chef. He was a great man, but he was very abusive to his employees. And the stress of being around him, I was in my 20s, and I could barely stand. When he would start going and yelling, I could barely stand up. I thought I had fibromyalgia. I was in so much pain. My mom, who was like 70 at the time, could run circles around me. And it wasn't until I quit my job was when the pain completely went away. There's been studies that say that 75% of lower back pain are from people who hate their job.
Wow.
Because their brain goes, why are we going back there? Don't go. Your brain knows how to stop you, and it's telling you, stop. There's something in your environment that you need to stop. So I 100% believe that our mindset and the thoughts that we have correlate with pain.
Yeah, there was another study that I saw. It says that, or it suggested that positive emotions also mitigate pain in the context of diseases.
Yeah, so that kind of goes back into what I was saying before. So when you are happy, you're more relaxed, right? Your shoulders aren't up. You're not in that threat response, right? Think about if I were to throw a ball at your face, you're going to be like this. It's your brain trying to protect itself. Well, the same thing, if we have a very stressful job or a bad relationship, people will complain about neck pain, back pain, because they're becoming like this. In fact, if I were to leave you alone and let you stay in a stressful environment, it's actually the brain's way of trying to go back to the fetal position. So when you're tight and tense, that's going to create pain. But anyway, you're going to be breathing from a more shallow place, which creates more of a nitric oxide level, not CO2. And when we have less CO2 and more acidity from nitric oxide, that's going to create disease. I mean, that's just one small little facet. There's other things that are involved. But what happens is, it's called the Randall effect. It's like, think of it as the backup generator that the body creates when it doesn't get sufficient amount of nutrients or isn't happy. Your backup generator kicks on and produces more inflammatory hormones or neurotransmitters that can definitely trigger diseases and things that were dormant inside you. Your metabolism lowers, and you're dealing with some serious things. Wow.
How do we tie this in? I'm curious, with relationships and dating and marriages. How, if somebody was coming to you to say, hey, repair me, because I know you use the word repair early.
Yeah.
And so, but they say repair me, but I wanted to become advantageous in your repairing so that it spills over into my relationship. How do we correlate that?
So when usually that person, because that situation happens a lot, and usually that person is not getting enough calories throughout the day. Like I said, the frontal lobe is the last part of the brain, and the brain's feeding pattern, it's from bottom to top, back to front. And how we interact with people, our behavior, the decisions that we make, how we react to someone, it all comes a lot from the frontal lobe. And so when you have someone that is overworked and underfueled, meaning they're not getting the right amount of calories, because today they teach that the health and medical industry teach that we need to put ourselves in a caloric deficit. And I 100% don't agree with that. Okay. In fact, you're only causing more harm, because when you do that, you're going to be taking on more maladaptive stress hormones that, one, will ruin the libido, will make someone experience pain, they will bloat them, they will take on weight. And so my clients who are married or dating someone and they're like, my libido is low, I don't want to have sex, and it's impacting my relationship in a negative way. The first thing I do is I get them to start eating. You have to feed your body, and you have to feed. And one of the main things that you have to eat is sugar. Which really? I know people that, when I say that, people almost swallow their tongues, because again, this could be a whole other conversation, but there's no money in telling people to eat sugar. And there's a lot of money in telling people to not eat sugar. And your brain's main source of fuel is glucose and oxygen. Wow. So if you're saying, oh my God, I can't eat carbs, your brain goes, okay, I'm going to get my carbs no matter what. And it sends out adrenaline and cortisol to inflame the tissues, and it pulls glucose from your muscles. It pulls glucose from your organs. And a lot of these organs deal with, of course it deals with our health, but it deals with our reproductive system. So your body, instead of being metabolic, becomes catabolic. You're eating yourself. And you become inflamed, you become sick, and like I said, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of work. And when you have a brain that is exhausted and is not getting food because society is teaching you to starve yourself, it's going to impact your relationships. Your frontal lobe does not have the patience to speak kindly to your partner, to sit down and listening when you're hungry, when you're exhausted, when you're stressed. It's difficult because in your mind, you're complaining and whining and I don't mean whining as in a bad sense, but you're in trouble as well. And then to take on somebody else's life, it's exhausting and it's overwhelming. So first thing is start eating, but you want to start eating the right foods. Also, you want to get moving. I encourage, what? I know you guys are probably hating each other right now, but you need to go out and you need to take a walk together. You need to get sunlight. You need to get vitamin D. You need to get red light from the sun. It's very healing. It increases metabolism. And everyone that I've said to go and do this, they always come back and say, you know what, Jen? That walk was awesome. We might be a little bit agitated still, but we actually spent time together. We saw things that we enjoyed. We talked a little bit more. And then the more they do it, their metabolism raises because they're not only getting nutrients from the sun, but they're increasing dopamine because they're moving. And just doing that can help relationships.
Wow, you said quite a bit there. I think that gives us something for next week to pick up and come back and talk in regards to that, because you hear so often about how sugar is something that we need to stay away from.
Yeah.
But in listening to your summation, explanation, and interpretation, then you took me in a whole different direction. So I'm coming back at you. Hey, you guys, you're listening to Regi's Recess on 87.9 Heat FM Charlotte. My guest tonight has been Jennifer Davis. You still have a little bit of time to call in. That's 385-212-HEAT. Join in the conversation. We're talking about health, and we're talking about happiness, and we're talking about how they correlate, but it all comes from within. We've had a delicious dialogue, a delightful dialogue. We've been enlightened, awakened, and empowered. Jennifer is a wealth of knowledge, and so happy to have her as my guest tonight. She's going to be back next week. So some of you may see this on YouTube. Others, you may hear it on 87.9. But however if you see it or if you hear it, you're going to get a lot of information on tonight. So Jennifer, why don't you share with my audience, how they can find you, what you're doing, what you have coming up, and things like that. If somebody wants to reach out to you, why don't you give some of your social media handles and some of that?
Okay. So you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. On Facebook, you want to go to True Health Community, and that's my public page. And there you'll see my blogs, videos on different topics. And on Instagram, go to Jen for True Health, and it's JENN, the number 4, TRUEHEALTH, Jen for True Health. Got lost. And then that's honestly the best way to get a hold of me. And I talk about many things from increasing your metabolism, fixing your libido, fixing thyroid health. I actually just posted an article today talking about how to become healthier when your loved one or the person you're in a relationship with is not supporting you. So it's a wide range of topics.
Well, you guys, if you want to reach out to her, you got her information. Jennifer, I want to throw one more thing out to you, and I want to see what you think about this. Happiness lengthens our lives. In other words, happiness adds more longevity to our lives. What do you think about that?
I believe it. When you have a brain that is happy and loves life, it's going to want to continue living. When you have, and I'll share a very quick personal story. My sister died of cancer a few years ago, and she was a very good person. She was a very loving person, but at the same time, she dealt with a lot of inflammation in her body and a lot of pain. And she had a lot of baggage that she never dealt with. And she was hell-bent on being miserable and negative.
Okay.
And she died very young. She died at 50.
That is young.
Yeah, and there's no doubt in my mind that her thoughts were so negative that it 100% impacted her health. My sister had never smoked in her life, and she died of lung cancer. And when you're negative and you take on the feelings of you're just going to have a miserable bad day and life cannot get better, your brain is listening to you. And it's like, hey, if life is this bad, why are we going to fight for it? Why are we going to live? Why are we going to make this? Why are we focusing on longevity here? There's no need. Life is too stressful. So again, there's a lot more to that, but I 100% believe that happy people live longer.
Happy people can live longer. Hey, you guys, listen, if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook at CRegiRodgers. That's C, Regi Rodgers. Instagram, that's CRegiRodgers. Again, that's C, Regi Rodgers. And if you want to look me up on the World Wide Web, go to www.CRegiRodgers. That's CRegiRodgers.com. Those are all my media platforms, social media platforms. where you can reach out to me. And again, if you want to call into the station, that's 385-212-HEAT, 215-212-HEAT, HEAT. For this whole month, we're going to be talking about health and happiness and how it all starts and comes from within. So I'm going to have Jennifer Davis. We've had her tonight. You listen to her tonight. I'll have her again next week. And I'm sure you can appreciate a lot of things that she said tonight, wealth of knowledge, as I have appreciated a lot of things that she said tonight. Some of you will be watching this on YouTube, and some will hear it on 87.9 Heat FM. So if you're watching us, thank you. If you're joining us and listening to us, we certainly appreciate you being with us every week. You know, I'm here every week, same place, same time, and same station every week, 87.9 Heat FM Charlotte. That's Regi's Recess, where you're going to get real talk about real relationship. I just want to share this with you, and then I'm going to have some closing things with my guests here, but I want to share this with you. Happiness can lengthen our lives. I think, as with anything else, you know, everything comes in moderation, common sense, and using smarts. You gotta use common sense and use smarts. While happiness can lengthen our lives, you know, that doesn't mean that it can ultimately always perform miracles. It does play a major role. There's some evidence that the link between happiness and longevity does exist, but it doesn't always mean that it extends to the ill, or at least not to the very ill. Jennifer gave you some powerful information so that you have this launching pad, and now you can build from. We don't bring in the stress. We don't bring in being overwhelmed. We don't bring in the conversation about the struggle. And just having all of this information helps. Jennifer has studied for a long period of time, so what she's saying, she knows what she's talking about. So that's why we brought her in for 2 weeks. I had to tie her hands behind her back, but I told her she was going to be with me for 2 weeks, and so I got her for 2 weeks. Jennifer, we got just a little bit of time before we go. Anything you want to say in closing?
You know, I really feel for so many people out there right now, and the level of intensity that a lot of people are feeling and going through. And just remember to breathe and know and believe that things will get better, and just continue on focusing on your health, because a lot of times when we're stressed, we put our health to the side.
Yeah.
You know, and for everybody to come together and to get through this stressful time period, you got to feed yourself, and you got to take care of you first before you can help others. Yeah.
Very, very, very good advice. She'll be back next week. I'll be back next week. Same place, same time, same station. I want you guys to have a great rest of the evening, and always know this. You know, I have not ended my show, I don't think, in 2020. This used to be my, Jennifer, this used to be my 2019 tag. I've always ended my shows in 2019 with, always remember this: what's to come is certainly better than what's been, and it's already looking better. So I'm going to close. I don't know, Jennifer, you brought it out of me today. I haven't ended the 2020 show with this one, but you guys always know, hey, what's to come is certainly better than what's been. And it's your perspective. Your perspective can make you or break you. But my perspective is it's already looking better. It's already looking better. Hey, you've heard it from an expanded conscious male's perspective. I'll be back next week. Thanks.